Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaale and today we're going to talk about how you handle dumb comments about chronic illness. Before we get started, I'm still doing market research on medical gaslighting, and I want to create a program that can help the chronic illness community avoid and handle medical gaslighting, and I still need your help with the market research. So there are now two ways you can help me. One is to spend 30 to 60 minutes of your valuable time letting me interview you about your experience with medical gaslighting. And you can do that by going to my booking site and book an appointment for that. And I will of course put a link in the description for the booking site. The other way you can now help me is by filling out a questionnaire. I realize that you might not be feeling well. You might not have a lot of energy. Maybe you just can't, you get a little overwhelmed by the thought of doing an interview, right? So I created a questionnaire if that's just easier for you to get done. And I will also put a link in the description for this questionnaire, and I would really appreciate if you would fill it out. It would just mean the world to me. I would just love to create a program that can just help us in the battle against medical gaslighting. Thank you. Last week I did a video called Dumb Things People Say About Chronic Illness. It's actually like a whole series that I have. I have a playlist with just those kind of videos, and I will put a link up here for that. And so you can go watch them if you want. It's like kind of fun and a little tragic at the same time, but go watch it. But I thought that this week I would give you some advice on how to handle these comments, because we all get them. We get them way too often. And what do you do in that situation, right? And I want to say I am very much aware that this is not easy. Some people are a little more shy when it comes to conflict than others and confronting. But I do think it's important to practice confronting these people when they make stupid, ignorant comments about your illness. It's important to stand up for yourself and to not apologize for your illnesses. So here are some examples on what to say, how to say it, and I'm gonna use some of the most common comments we get, right? So I think one comment that probably all people with chronic illness have ever had was, "You don't look sick." Now in these situations, how do you respond to that? If somebody says to you, "You don't look sick," how do you respond to that? Well, there are different ways to go, and the way I go depends on the person making the comment, because sometimes people don't mean it in a demeaning way. Sometimes they might even think they are kind of giving you a compliment because, like, okay, you're sick, but you don't look it, like, you know, something like that, even though that's also kind of a weird thing to do. But so it depends a little bit on how the person is acting towards me. But there are multiple ways to go with a comment like this. You can go the polite way, and you can go the slightly more sarcastic, little bit demeaning way. The polite way would be something a little more educational, like, "You know, I know that I don't look sick, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean I'm not sick." You can also give an example. You know, you could say to people something like, "Well, you know, it's a known fact that humans have DNA, but you can't see the DNA when you look at a person. Does that mean that person doesn't have any DNA? That's just not how the world works." You can also enlighten them in how it makes you feel, right? So you could say something like, "Just because you can't see that I'm sick doesn't mean I'm not sick, and honestly, it really hurts my feelings when you say something like that, because you're invalidating my illnesses and the experiences I've had with it." And that's also a way to go. Again, for me, it depends a lot on the person. If you want to go a more sarcastic / fun way, you could say something like, "Oh, I don't look sick? Well, wait, you're right, I'm not sick. You can't see it, so now I'm magically cured from all my chronic illnesses." have you gone to medical school? Something like that. It takes a lot of bravery to actually say something like that. But you know, it's always a fun way because people always have the weirdest response to that. But that was some ways to go on that comment. Another comment I think a lot of us get is, you're too young to be sick. I don't get that comment as often anymore. Now I feel old. But when you get that comment, you're too young to be sick. Again, you can go a polite, educational way. You can also go the more sarcastic way. The polite and more educational way is to say, yes, I'm young, but that doesn't mean I'm not sick. I've been diagnosed by doctors who are educated in this field and actually know what they're talking about. I have felt the symptoms on my body. So you might think that I'm too young, but that's just not the reality. Everybody can get sick no matter what age. But I do agree with you. I'm too young to be sick. I shouldn't have to deal with this at my age. I really shouldn't, but I am. And again, you can also tell them how it makes you feel. Saying, when you say that I'm too young to be sick, you're invalidating my illnesses. You are invalidating everything I've been through with these illnesses. And it really hurts my feelings. You can do that. That's a more polite, educational way. You can also be a little more, again, I love the sarcastic way. I have to say, I really do. A sarcastic way to answer this is, oh, really? Well, you know, that's weird because my doctor who is specialized in bowel diseases diagnosed me and told me that I have this chronic illness. But apparently you guys didn't go to the same medical school. Maybe you should give him a call and tell him that I'm too young to be sick. You know, so he can check up on me, because maybe he was wrong, because clearly you went to a way better medical school than he did. Sarcasm often makes people understand the point. You can also go a more direct and honest way with the sarcasm and be like, oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. So that time when I was lying on my living room floor, literally saw death coming for me. I was in so much pain and I was rushed to the hospital and I was diagnosed with my Crohn's disease, and I was told later on that my infection numbers had been so high that, you know, I was coming to an end in my life. Sure, that never happened. That wasn't illness. That's just, no, because I was too young. That didn't happen. Of course not. Something like that, you know, sometimes sarcasm really does get the point across a lot better. Again, it depends on how they act towards you, I would say. I actually do have a story where it wasn't so much, where it was actually someone who did have illnesses, who made a comment to me related to this thing about being too young. And it was when I worked at a pharmacy, and at this time I wasn't diagnosed with ADD and depression and anxiety yet, but I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and I was getting and am still getting an injection that I have to go pick up at the hospital for my Crohn's disease. And I was getting all his medicines ready, and he was getting quite a lot, and he said to me that he was really sick of having to take so many pills. And I said to him in the nicest customer service way that I completely understood, because I do understand what it's like to having to take a lot of medicine and stuff. So and then he said, you have no idea what that's like. You're way too young to know what that's like. And if I had been a healthy and able person in that situation, I should probably have been a little more customer service polite and said, you know what, you're right, I don't understand that because I'm not sick. But I could only imagine something like that. But because I was sick, I got a little offended, because he was assuming that there was nothing wrong with me because I was young. So I actually said to him, well, you know, actually I have a bowel disease. And I take an injection every week, and I can't even buy it in the pharmacy. I have to go to the hospital and pick it up. And he didn't say a lot after that. Another comment that I think a lot of us get is, oh, I wish I didn't have to work that many hours. I wish I could only work part-time. I wish I could just be on disability and stay at home all the time. Those kind of comments that like, where people really don't seem to understand that you're sick. It's not because you just got a free pass and didn't have to work. You're actually sick and you can't work, or maybe you can only work part-time. Those are some of the most annoying comments, to be honest with you. What do I do? Again, it depends a lot on the person, but something I will usually say whenever somebody makes a comment like that, you know, again, you can go the more polite way, depending on how well you know this person and how they're talking to you. And a polite way, educational way would be, you know what, I completely understand why you sometimes think it's overwhelming to work full time and that it would be amazing to go home every day at 1 p.m. I can see that, but when you say something like that, it seems to me like you don't really take into account that I'm actually sick. And the reason I go home at 1 p.m. is not because I live a luxury life where I have some privileges that you don't have. It's actually because I have chronic illness that makes my life really, really hard and makes me struggle a lot, makes me suffer a lot, and makes me unable to hold down a full-time job. And if you are at home on disability, say that I can't work and I'm on disability, I'm living on other people's mercy, that they are willing to pay taxes so that I can get disability. I can't provide for myself, and that's really horrible. I wish I could. You know, try to make them understand that, because who doesn't understand that sometimes you don't want to work 100 hours a week? I understand why a lot of people like, oh, I wish I could go home early every day. Like, I totally get it. But when you say something like that to someone with chronic illness, making it sound like it's some kind of a privilege you have when you are sick, they don't take into the account that you're sick, right? And that's just so insulting. So educating them, saying, you do know that I don't go home and just have a good time, right? You are aware that, you know, I go home and rest and, you know, I'm sick. You can also go another way. I sometimes say to people, sometimes I have coworkers who say, oh, I wish I could go home too now. And I know they don't mean it in a mean way, but I will always smile and just say, oh, you know what? Let's just switch lives, you know? I take your full-time job and you take all my illnesses. That would be perfect for me. Perfect. And they're always like laughing and say, oh, no. But you can say that to people. You can say that to every people, like all people who say something like that. You can say, oh, you know what? I would love to switch life with you. I take your full-time job. You take all my illnesses. That includes this. I would be glad to switch life with you. They usually shut up, right? They usually shut up. The last comment I want to comment on is, I get tired too, because some people, they really don't understand that being tired when you are sick versus being tired because you had a long day are two very different things. They just don't understand fatigue. They don't understand what that's like. Never having a lot of energy, right? They really don't understand. It's just not the same. And again, you can go the more polite way and educate them and say, of course you get tired too. Everybody gets tired, but you have to remember that the kind of tired that I experience is not the same as you. When you get tired, you go home, you rest, you sleep, and then you are refreshed. That's not what happens for me. When I get tired, I get flu-like symptoms. I feel really, really sick. Sometimes I get nauseous, sometimes it's even painful, and it doesn't help to rest. It doesn't help to sleep. I don't feel more refreshed from that. And no matter what, my battery will never be 100% charged. That's just not a thing for me. Like explaining to them what it actually is you go through. A more sarcastic way could be saying something like, oh yeah, because, you know, being tired from working on your goals and your dreams in life, going to the gym, going out with your friends, and just living your best life is the exact same thing as being tired from having a body that's trying to kill you. Something like that, it always shuts them up. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope you got some inspiration to how you can answer these types of comments. And it takes a lot of guts sometimes to stand up for yourself, but I do recommend practicing that. But you can choose the more educational, polite way or the more sarcastic way. Either way is okay. Whatever you feel most comfortable with. For me, like I said before, it depends on how the person is talking to me. If they're being demeaning, I get them some sarcasm with a demeaning tone as well. But if they're saying something and they don't mean anything, I can tell they are not trying to be mean, they're not trying to be ignorant, they just don't understand, they just don't think about it, then I go the more educational, polite way. So there are a lot of ways to do this, and this was inspiration and also a recommendation to stand up for yourself and actually comment on these stupid comments. Because you are allowed to do that. You're allowed to set boundaries, you're allowed to stand up for yourself, you're allowed to educate people who are ignorant when it comes to chronic illness. And not apologize for it, by the way. That's really important. But practice, because a lot of these comments are like the same. We all get the same comments. You can write comments down and then write different types of answers so that you don't have to think about it in the moment of the heat, but you already have answers. That's actually a really good way to do it. And practice saying it out loud to yourself so it just right there on your tongue, right? Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share the video, turn on notifications. And also you can go follow me on my Instagram. That's also called The Art of Being Ill. And I will see you next time right here on my channel, The Art of Being Ill.